And we are back. Welcome back to the Premier League prediction series. It is time for another midweek round of Premier League action. It is game week 21 after an absolutely fascinating FA Cup weekend. Still one fixture to go. Actually, 4 fixtures to go in the FA Cup if you include the postponed matches. Links to those videos are available at the top of your screen right now. And best believe I am still full of energy after that FA Cup match between Arsenal and Manchester United yesterday. If you want to see my post-match reaction, links to that also available on the channel. But without any further ado, let's skip ahead to the prediction screen where you'll see a couple of different things to usual. Firstly, I've not got the season results on there because the FA Cup games are still ongoing, so I'll update the season results before the next round of Premier League action. But also, you will see that we've managed to get ourselves back above 50% once again after our second 7 out of 10 for Premier League predictions in a row, with 2 correct scores taking us up to 16 correct scores on the season so far. And because this is game week 21, and because this is a mirror of a previous game week, you'll also notice at the bottom of the screen, I have put what I actually got in the reverse fixtures, and I got 5 out of 10 for game week 4. And to be honest with you, looking at the fixtures for this game week, it's going to be another very, very tough one to call. So before we get into it, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you do enjoy all of these prediction series, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with notifications turned on so don't miss out on any of the videos we've got coming up for you over the course of the next couple of weeks. And without any further ado, let's get into it. Premier League game week 21 starts off on Tuesday night with Brentford versus Manchester City. Brentford, the only Premier League side to be knocked out of the FA Cup this weekend by lower league opposition. Take that as you will in terms of the strength of the Premier League versus everyone else, but Brentford were the only Premier League side to lose to lower league opposition. And not only that, it was bottom of the Championship Plymouth Argyle. So not even a great result in terms of, if it was like a Leeds or a Sunderland or a Burnley, who are the teams that are up there at the moment. It was Plymouth, bottom of the Championship, at home as well. Meanwhile, City were beating Salford 8-0. So City are looking back to their best. All right, it was only Salford, but they've won their last 2 Premier League games as well. And for all of the talk about Brentford's home form, that defeat to Plymouth yesterday means they've lost their last 3 home games in a row. So it's all a bit coming off the rails at the moment for Brentford. They've only had 2 wins in their last 7 in all competitions. As we've just mentioned, City have won 3 in a row. And City have won the last 3 games against Brentford. It was 2-1 in the reverse fixture at the Etihad. In terms of injuries and suspensions, both teams are starting to get players back. They're not quite fully fit yet. Some of them, it was nice to see Rico Henry getting a run out for Brentford for the first time in 18 months against Plymouth. But right now, I think you have to go for Manchester City in this game. Brentford need to find something that they've lost in the last few weeks if they're going to get a result against a City side looking to push themselves back up the Premier League table. As things stand right now, I have to go for a City win. I'm going for 2-1 to the defending champions. Second game on Tuesday sees Chelsea taking on Bournemouth. 2 sides that scored 5 goals in the FA Cup at the weekend. Chelsea beating Morecombe, Bournemouth beating West Brom. The question about Bournemouth was going to be who was going to play up front for them, with Unal and Evanilson both out for the rest of the season. And it was Danga Ouattara, I can't say his name properly. He came in, he went up front, and he scored 2 goals against West Brom. And then Jebison came off the bench and he scored as well. So all that chat about what are Bournemouth going to do, well, they scored 5 with other players that can play up front. So I think they're going to be all right in that regard. For Chelsea, it's no fresh injury concerns off the back of the Morecambe game. Unsurprising, given the fact that they rotated their entire starting 11. Reece James is back. Romeo Lavia is back. And they're starting to look like a side that could potentially get things going again. But it's worth noting, in their last 4 matches against Premier League sides, they have not won a single one of them. However, they haven't lost to Bournemouth since 2019. And they won at the Vitality earlier in the season 1-0, which of course included that penalty miss from Evanilson. Bournemouth will also be without Kepa for this one. He cannot play against his parent club. So it's going to be an interesting one. Like I say, Chelsea are winless in their last 4. Bournemouth are unbeaten in their last 8 in the Premier League. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw. I just think Chelsea's form in recent weeks is not quite enough to have them see off Bournemouth. But we'll see. I will consider Chelsea favourites, but right now I'm going for a draw. Speaking of draws, the next game between West Ham and Fulham was a 1-1 draw in September. And it's going to be another tough one to call here as well. It's going to be Graham Potter's first game in charge of West Ham, both in the Premier League and at the London Stadium. They come into this off the back of defeat to Aston Villa in the FA Cup, which, to be fair to them, they put up a reasonably good fight. They went ahead, and it was only with the late goals from, I think it was Watkins and Morgan Rogers, that got Aston Villa over the line. That said, though, it's still 3 defeats in a row for them in all competitions if you include that FA Cup game. For Fulham, it was victory against Watford with a basically reserve team, but it did come at the expense of Rodrigo Muniz. It looks like he's picked up a back injury, but Raul Jimenez was starting anyway. West Ham lost Fulkrug in their game with a hamstring injury, it looked like. So he looks like he's going to be missing for a while, which again leaves another side without a recognised striker, apart from, I think, maybe Danny Ings may have to come in and start. It's not been something that West Ham have been doing that often this season, so it's probably going to have to be Danny Ings that comes in. I still think this is going to be a tight one. It was, like I say, 1-1 in September. I'm going for another draw, but this time I'm going for 2-2. I can see this being a little bit more of an open game, but we'll see. I'm going for a 2-2 draw. The final game on Tuesday night is the biggest game of the entire week, and that is absolutely undeniable. It is Nottingham Forest, third place in the Premier League table. I'm not getting behind this. Oh, they're joint second. They are quite a way off Arsenal in terms of goal difference. So it's third place Nottingham Forest taking on first place Liverpool. Nottingham Forest have won 7 games in a row now, including the victory over Luton Town in the FA Cup. For Liverpool, their mini winless run came to an end against Accrington Stanley, but I mean, does that even really count? Especially considering they basically played their reserves plus Trent. But, you know, you have to look at their last 2 games and say, coming in before the Accrington Stanley game, of course, and say they really struggled against Manchester United at Anfield. They couldn't even score at Spurs. That is the biggest surprise for me. They won 6-3 at Spurs just a month ago. Yet last week, with near enough the exact same team, they didn't score a single goal against Spurs. They're now coming up against a Nottingham Forest side that has the most clean sheets in the division, has near enough everybody fully fit after Danilo returned for them at the weekend in their FA Cup game. So they're basically at full strength. Darwin Núñez is going to be suspended for Liverpool, although granted he doesn't normally start anyway. And Joe Gomez and Quansah are still injured for Liverpool, again, albeit they don't usually start anyway. But to me, I look at this game, I look at the form of the two sides, I look at where they are in the table, and that Nottingham Forest won at Anfield earlier on in the season. Nottingham Forest have to be considered the favourites for this. They have to. There is just too much in their favour for me to go for any other result. I think it's going to be a cracking game in terms of strategy and how it's going to play out, but I'm going to go Forest again, and I'm going to go 1-0 again, exactly like it was at Anfield, exactly like it was actually last season as well, albeit to Liverpool. The last 2 games on this ground between these two sides have ended 1-0. 1-0 to Forest 2 years ago, 1-0 to Liverpool last year. So, we'll see. It certainly makes the title race more interesting if Forest can get the result here. Even a draw will make things slightly more interesting. I just don't want to see Liverpool win, and maybe I'm being a little bit biased, but I think there's a lot of remit for actually going for Nottingham Forest in this fixture. On to Wednesday, and we start off with the homecoming of David Moyes, 11 years in charge of Everton, 11 years away from Everton, and he is back at Goodison Park to see off Goodison Park and see Everton into the new era. And it kicks off against Aston Villa. To be fair, the win over Peterborough, marshalled by Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman, was only their second win in 12, their first in 5. For Villa, their victory over West Ham was another good home victory for them. And they now welcome back the likes of John Duran and Morgan Rogers to their Premier League side, but they're still going to be missing John McGinn. The only thing that is really going in favour of Everton in this one is that Aston Villa have actually lost all of their last 5 Premier League away matches, which is quite a run that they're on away from home. Meanwhile, Everton have only lost 1 of their last 7 at home, albeit it was their last game at home. And again, it looked like they'll be missing Dwight McNeil and Roman Brozier. It was a 3-2 victory to Aston Villa at Villa Park. I'm backing David Moyes to get at least something from his opening game back in charge of Everton, but I'm still going to give Villa a goal, which means I'm going for a 1-1 draw. Second game on Wednesday is Leicester against Crystal Palace, 19th against 15th. It's a massive game in the relegation scrap. Leicester are 2 points from safety after losing their last 5 Premier League games. But, to be fair to them, a nice 6-2 win over QPR is a good confidence builder for them. For Crystal Palace, they're now 5 points from safety after a 3-game unbeaten run in the Premier League. And, of course, victory in the FA Cup as well, a 1-0 win for them. It was a 2-2 draw, actually, at Selhurst Park, with Leicester managing to produce quite a good performance away to Palace in that game. But I just think the form these two sides are in. Okay, Leicester won 6-2, but okay, it was against a Championship side. Can they now produce that same sort of performance at home to a Crystal Palace side that are on actually a really good run of form themselves? For me, I just don't see it. I'm edging in favour of Crystal Palace. I'm going for a 2-1 victory to the Eagles. Next up, Newcastle take on Wolves. It is 6 wins in a row in the league for Newcastle. Then they beat Arsenal in the EFL Cup. Then they beat Barrow in the FA Cup. So it's 8 wins in a row in total. For Wolves, it was a 2-1 win at Bristol City. But that was with their full first team, minus swapping the goalkeepers around. So I just think it's not a good look for Wolves still. I think their run of fixtures they've got coming up is absolutely horrendous. And this is a really bad place to start for them with the form that Newcastle are in. The only thing that could be a real concern coming into this is there are rumours that Isak has picked up a hamstring injury, and as I record this morning, he is still listed as doubtful for this match. As it stands, I would expect Isak to play, but if he's not available, that makes a massive difference to this Newcastle side. So we'll see. I think Wolves, like I say, under Vitor Pereira, are definitely playing better football. They'll have Mateus Cunha back and available. His suspension is now over, so there is a chance they could produce something in this match. But the way Newcastle are playing at the moment, and they've already won at Molineux earlier on in the season, a 2-1 victory for Newcastle on that occasion, I've got to go for the side in form. I'm going for a 2-0 victory to Newcastle. The final game on Wednesday night is another massive one. It is the North London derby, and Arsenal and Tottenham both come into this after, in my opinion, rather embarrassing displays in the FA Cup. Arsenal couldn't put Manchester United away against 10 men for more than half of the game. The misses that they had, obviously the penalty miss and then the Havertz misses and losing on penalties to Manchester United, really not a good look for Arsenal, especially after that 2-0 defeat to Newcastle in the EFL Cup as well. For Spurs, they back up their 1-0 win against Liverpool by failing to score against Tamworth in 90 minutes to the extent that they have to bring on all of their first team players, bar 2 in normal time, still don't score before extra time and nearly lost. And it was only when they then bring on Son and Kulusevski that they then go on and get the win against non-league Tamworth in the FA Cup. It's been an embarrassing display from Spurs. Not only that, they've only got 1 win in their last 9 Premier League games. So it's not like they're playing well in there either. Arsenal's last Premier League game was that really poor display against Brighton. So as much as I want to sit here and say this could be a really fun game, I can actually see it being an incredibly boring game as two sides that are really struggling for form try and get something out of this. But I'm a believer in fun football, and I'm a believer in this fixture always causing chaos. So I'm still going to go for a high-scoring match. I'm going to go for 3-2 to Arsenal. What I would say is that Tottenham's new goalkeeper, Kinski, has come in and looked really good. So we'll interested to see how he does in this sort of environment against an Arsenal side that is still struggling in front of goal. So maybe going for 3-2 Arsenal is a bit stupid considering how few chances Arsenal are taking. If there's ever going to be a time for Spurs to win at the Emirates, it's going to be this game. But at the same time, it's a good time for Arsenal to play Spurs as well. I'm going 3-2. Let's see what happens. And then we have 2 games on Thursday. The first of those is Ipswich against Brighton, where the key word around this fixture is injuries. Ipswich Town, who already have a host of injuries, have now lost Amari Hutchinson and Sammy Smodics for this fixture, two of their creative midfielders. They've both picked up injuries and are going to be missing. Meanwhile, Brighton are still without any of their recognised strikers. Welbeck's still out, Ferguson's still out, looks like João Pedro is still going to be out. Thankfully for them, Jorginho Ruter stepped up for them in the FA Cup. He scored 2 goals against Norwich, but again, it's a championship side. Ipswich, 3-0 victors over Bristol Rovers. They changed their entire team. Again, proof that the Premier League is just so far ahead of the other divisions. But we come into this with interesting views on it because Ipswich are actually unbeaten in their last 2 Premier League games. They won against Chelsea. They drew at Fulham. Brighton haven't won any of their last 8 games in the Premier League, but have drawn, I think it was 6. So they're looking to get a result. Ipswich are looking to build. Ipswich, though, with those injuries to those creative players, are they going to be able to service the lap without those players in their team? I think it's going to be a tough one to call. It was a 0-0 draw at the Amex, and I was very tempted to go for that again, but I'm not going to. I think it's going to be a little bit more open than it was in that game. I'm still going to go for a Brighton win, though, and I'm going for 2-1 to Brighton. And then finally, it is Manchester United taking on Southampton, the final game of the week. Manchester United, off the back of what has been an incredible couple of weeks for them. 2-2 draw at Anfield, coming through the horrors of that refereeing performance against Arsenal in the FA Cup, surviving with 10 men, winning on penalties. And they take on a Southampton side who finally got themselves a win. Okay, again, it was against championship opposition, but a 3-0 victory, meaning it was their first win in 11. And if we're playing on technicalities, because Manchester United won on penalties, they've still not actually won a game in their last 6. 4 defeats followed by 2 draws. And the question is now, can they actually perform against a side that's going to sit back against them? They've sit back and counter-attacked really well against Arsenal and Liverpool, but can they now be the side on the front foot against the side that is going to sit back and defend? Hopefully, against the worst side in the league, it will be enough for Manchester United as a Manchester United fan to get the result. But I'm erring on the side of caution. Dalot will be suspended following his very controversial red card against Arsenal. Southampton have no fresh injury or suspension concerns, so they're going to be fit and ready to go. I'm still going for United, though, but I'm just going to go for a 1-0 win to Manchester United. I'm hoping that 1 goal will be enough. Hopefully we don't get hit on any counters and concede, because I think it's going to be a very long day if we do. So I'm going for 1-0, and that will conclude today's video. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.